even though life is hard, you can make the best of it. Like as they say, you can make lemonade out of lemons.
Welcome to Unemployable, the podcast where we strive to inspire and amplify disabled voices in the business landscape. I'm your host, Sarah Siede, and our mission is to ensure that the future generations of entrepreneurs with a disability are seen, heard, and celebrated. So let's jump in and explore what's possible. Hello there, Martha. How are you going?
Good, thank you.
Oh, it's so
Hi,
lovely to
Sarah.
have you here. When I decided to actually start recording a podcast, you're one of the people that I was really, really hoping that I'd get a chance to have a conversation with. So when you reached out to me, I was really excited. I was a little bit nervous to just go, oh, hey, excuse me, would you be on my little podcast over here?
Of course I would.
So let's talk a little bit about Martha. We're thrilled to have Martha Siede here to join us on this podcast. Martha lives with her husband, Andrew, in Western Sydney, and she has recently written a book called In the Pursuit of Normal, which captures her journey and lots of lessons that she's learnt along the way. Thank you so much for being here, Martha. I really appreciate you being here. So can you talk to me a little bit about In Pursuit of Normal and how that reflects your experiences? How did that come about?
Yeah, so it's kind of in the title in that I wanted to always be normal as a child, just so I could go upstairs myself. So that was always my pursuit. But as we know, normal comes in all different shapes and sizes. Yeah, I've learnt to create my new normal along the way. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, normal. What is normal exactly? I hear that word a lot, normal, but what is somebody? It's just a setting on the dryer. Just a setting on the dryer doesn't actually mean anything. And I think, that pursuit of normal, getting up the stairs is something that you've not been able to do on your own. So can you talk to us a little bit about your experiences as a kid and your experiences with disability?
So after I was born, I stopped breathing and I have cerebral palsy and I use a wheelchair to get around. So I've always been limited by my wheelchair and the environment around me. But the good thing is that I've always had a dry, comfortable seat to sit on.
This is true. Isn't that the truth? You know, as long as I've known you, Martha, you have always looked for the positives in everything or for the lessons in everything. Is that something that really led you to write this book as well?
I wrote the book as a legacy for my family, but also to let the world know, or whoever read it, that even though life is hard, you can make the best of it. Like as they say, you can make lemonade out of lemons.
Isn't it the truth? Absolutely.
Or I say lemon meringue pie.
I'd much prefer that over lemonade any day of the week.
Yeah, I've always, through my hardships, seen what I can get out of it and how I can keep moving forward.
Excellent. And I know this to be true about you because I know you personally, and this is an absolute accurate reflection of who you are as a person. You're very inspirational. So in your book, when you're discussing the concept of normal, how did you define normal, your pursuit of normal, when it comes to finding a job and being employed and making money? Like, how did your pursuit of normal follow there?
So it was hard at first. As a naive 20-year-old, I thought I could send out my resume and I could get job interviews and I could get a job that way. I got 2 people call me back wanting to interview me. And one of my questions was always, do you have stairs at your place of business? And the answer, unfortunately and heartbreakingly, was, yes, we have stairs. We can't interview you.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was the end of that opportunity.
It's just such a huge barrier to so many people. And by not having stairs or by having an access in a different way, you're opening the door for everybody. But by having stairs, you're eliminating a very specific part of the population. Yeah.
So that was back in the 80s, in the late 80s, early 90s. Consultant looked for a job for me, and she found me an internship with a council, and because they wanted to fill in their disability quota.
They wanted to tick that box for themselves?
Yes. So they sent me for a medical, which I passed. And it was for an internship. I was in my 20s. I was at university. And they wrote me a letter saying I was underskilled and I couldn't do the internship. I didn't have the qualifications.
For an internship?
Yeah, but it wasn't true. It was that part of the role was to fill in a ledger at the time, which probably now would be all done on computer. But I have an inability to write. And so they knocked me down because...
But something that could have been really easily changed to another way was not, as not having the skills, where actually they just didn't provide the opportunity.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, it does make my skin crawl a little bit when I hear stories like this, Martha.
Yeah, so I guess I then went into preservation mode, and I didn't want to put myself out there like that. And
well, it would have been a massive blow to your confidence, having been knocked back and been told you don't have the skills when you clearly have the skills.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe the internship would have just needed reading and writing skills, which I definitely had.
Yes, the skills that you needed for that particular role. So no wonder that you're confident. So what happens after that? Where did you turn to after that?
So then I asked the employment consultant to put me into a sheltered workshop environment.
Right.
And that was hard because the people that were working there that had a disability had been very institutionalized because they were a lot older.
Yeah.
And so they knew how to walk that narrow line. But I was more in the world doing stuff with everyone else.
And that's how you were raised. You were raised that way with your family. I know that your family are a big influence on you and that you're very close to them, and you were always raised that anything is possible.
Yeah, and so the non-disabled workers, there was very much an us and them mentality, which I didn't cope with very well. I wanted to work in that environment because I wanted to learn about how to fill in a pay sheet, how to apply for a holiday, skills that I didn't have as a 20-something-year-old because I didn't have a part-time job.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I've actually not been able to have a really good conversation with somebody who'd been in a sheltered workshop business service kind of arrangement before, but you did take away some good skills from them.
Yeah, so I learned how a workplace works, like that there's culture and that you have to, communicate well. However, in the workshop environment, they pay you on your productivity. So I was only paid 30% of a normal wage. But if I go shopping to buy a pair of jeans, they're not going to accept my 30%.
No, that's right. I'm sorry. I only am 30% productive, so can I only pay 30% of these jeans, please? It's just not really an accurate, it's not an affordable way to live.
No, it's not good for your confidence either.
No. Martha, do you think if you'd had the opportunity to have a part-time job or access, employment as a teenager, that would have changed a lot?
Yeah, that would have helped me learn a lot of skills. A lot.
Learn those things at a takeaway shop or at McDonald's when they're 15,
Yeah.
16, and then not have to start from scratch when they're in their 20s.
Yes. And also, when you start as a 20-something-year-old, they assume that you know,
Mm.
but you don't know.
And that's actually a massive gap in a lot of the people that I support. A lot of people I talk to with a disability didn't have the same opportunities as their peers to make
Yes.
those mistakes and make those choices and learn those lessons early on during school.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, puts everyone behind the eight ball before we've even started. So when you moved on from that experience, what was your next foray into employment?
So then I did volunteer work, and I felt that was a safe space because at any time I could just leave.
Yeah, there's not the pressure there.
Yeah. But what happened was at the same time that I started working, there was another lady that was working without a disability. Yet I was being responsible and doing my work, and she was dropping the ball. And so they assumed that it would be the reverse, that I would drop the ball, and I didn't. And so they learnt to rely on me a lot.
So you changed their way of thinking as well.
Yeah, because I was reliable. So there was one instance where I heard the boss talking about whether I could do a job or not. And I went in there and I said, it's not up for you to decide whether I can or can't do it. You ask me what you need done, and I'll either say yes or no, but more often than not, I will find a way.
Mm-hmm.
And so even when you want to say a cup of coffee, I can't do that, but I got someone else to deliver it to him.
Where there's a will, there's a way. But I guess the important point here is being included in that conversation, right?
Yeah.
There's no point people having these conversations in rooms without us when it's actually we're the ones they're talking about.
Yes, he learned a valuable lesson that you don't just assume you know what a person with a disability can or can't do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
And as you say, it needs to be a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to be included in it. People can't have that conversation for us.
Yeah,
it has to be something that we're included in. We get to express exactly what our opinions are around it. Do you have any in your book? So you've moved on to writing. Have you always been a writer? Is this something you wanted to do forever, or is this something that struck you one day?
I've always wanted to write. I felt I always had a story that I had to share. It was just about timing of when I can get the ball rolling and keep it rolling to get to the end. So I tried a number of times to write a book. I'd get stuck or bogged down, but this time I had a friend help edit, and so I was accountable to someone.
That's really good.
Produce, yes.
Yeah, if you've got an accountability buddy, you've got to produce for the next step to happen. So that's really, really helpful. Was there a particular catalyst that started this process this time?
Yeah. So 3 years ago, I was in a coma for 67 days.
I remember this time when I remember seeing photos, Martha, and I actually remember thinking some very scary and sad things at the time.
Yeah, so I had a hip operation that went wrong. And so being in a coma for 67 days means all your muscles waste away. It was like a baby with a human brain, with an adult brain, in that I couldn't live by myself. And so I had to learn how to sit up again. And a bread roll was too heavy to lift.
Wow.
So my husband Andrew had to cut it in half for me to lift it. for a while there, even cutlery was too heavy.
Wow. So that would have been a really long process of rehabilitation.
Yes. So for the past 3 years, I've been able to type, which was good for writing my book.
Very important.
And also just strength training, like getting my muscles up and running again and learning how to do everything again.
To where you were before the coma?
Yes and no. So in
Okay.
some areas I'm stronger, but in other areas I'm not as flexible as I used to be, and I'm unable to get on and off the wheelchair on my own from the
Right.
floor.
That's absolutely remarkable considering the length of time that you were in the coma and how sick you were. The fact that 3 years later that we're having this conversation, that you typed out a book, that we were talking about writing earlier, like,
Yeah.
it's actually pretty amazing to be sitting here and having this conversation with
Yes.
you.
And also I had no voice for the first year.
Was that the
Trachea.
worst part?
Yeah, so I had a trachea, and that was my life support, like giving me air to my lungs. And when they took that out, it took about a year to get my voice back as strong
Wow.
as it was before.
Right. During that time, were you thinking a lot about your story and sharing your story and leaving that legacy?
Yeah, so I have quite a big family, and they
You do.
keep getting bigger and bigger. And because I didn't have children, I didn't want them to forget about me.
I don't think
No.
it would be humanly possible to forget about you.
It was a bit narcissistic, I guess, but
No, I think, look,
um,
we all want to make a mark on the world. We all
yeah,
do this for legacy. I mean, the reason we make these recordings and talk about these stories is so people will hear them and listen and learn. We all want to know that it's not for nothing at the end of the day, right?
yeah, that they could remember me by. But I also wanted people to, if I guess I remember people saying, "Oh, like little children, do you sleep in your wheelchair?" And so I've wanted to answer those questions.
Mm,
So there's an actual chapter in my book that goes through the day of like getting up, sitting up, getting on my chair, going to the bathroom,
hmm.
making bassoon noises, getting back on my chair, going to eat and stuff like that. So, just a bit of fun, but
Really important because I don't think people consider how many steps in a day that would add as well,
yeah,
timing wise,
yeah,
and all of those things are really important to consider for employment as well. So I remember having a conversation, see everything obviously after COVID, everything changed with people being able to work from home and where steps were less of an issue. But they were starting to bring things like networking meetings back to the room again. And I remember having a conversation in a big room of people saying, well, actually, these online forums are really, really helpful. And there was one
yeah,
girl that we didn't realize. She said, well, I don't know if you guys know, but I'm in a wheelchair. And if I need to get to that meeting in person, I have to book support. I have to get up 3 hours earlier. I have to get transferred out of my bed. Like, there was a list of about 15 things she had to do before getting ready to attend the
yeah,
meeting. And no one else in the room had considered that.
yeah. And that's the thing, like, you don't really, sometimes people rock up from being in a wheelchair and you think, oh wow, they've made it great. But you don't know the hoops and the hurdles that they've gone through to get there.
That's right. And it just, being able to work from home or working in flexible
Yeah.
environments, working with technology has been able to add a lot more flexibility. Well, you mentioned before we got started, we were talking about technology. How has technology changed everything for you?
It has, it's changed everything. So computers have helped because, as I said earlier, I was unable to write like with a pen. And
Mm,
so using a computer, I can manage that and I can do everything like everyone else does.
mm,
And so then after I work at my volunteer job, I really wanted to work where I could earn money because I'd proven what I was capable of to
Volunteering is
myself.
wonderful, but it
Yeah.
doesn't pay the bills.
Had a meeting with the CEO and I said I'd like to work, and it was like, yeah, start next week. You'll be doing a job club. And so he taught me a little bit, and then he said, yeah, you're on your own, go for it. And so I ran a job club and helped people look for work. And that was a good experience as well.
Amazing. But that was very bold of you to go direct to the CEO.
Yeah, I actually set up the meeting to ask him if I was eligible to have help looking for work. And what came out of my mouth was, can I work with you?
Have you always been like that?
Yeah, so I like to give life a good crack.
Yeah.
And the worst that can happen is that people say no. I'll go home and lick my wounds and have a cry.
Yeah.
But at least I've tried. And so, yeah, that's just something that is inbuilt in me. And so after working at that place of employment, I had my own plan manager because moved on to NDIS. And there was a support coordinator role going. And she said, I think you should apply. And so I did. And we had to adjust the job a little bit. But on the whole, I was a support coordinator. And I was able to work from home.
Excellent. Working from home has just been a game changer.
This was before COVID.
Right.
So it was a little bit isolating because I didn't really understand that you needed to have more meetings and more communication with someone that worked from home.
Yeah,
But,
that's true. We didn't really know how to do it back then. I was a support coordinator before COVID as well, and they actually explicitly told me that the job could not possibly be done from home. Couldn't possibly.
yeah, well,
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I'm doing it right now.
yeah. And so then after that job, the next job I went to was in the middle of COVID, and they had a lot more meetings and they buddied people up so that they weren't so lonely and isolated.
Amazing.
There's been such a progression in the workplace with technology and people with disabilities having the ability to contribute more.
Without the simple barrier of just signing in on a piece of paper.
Traveling for an hour and a half to get to your workplace.
You've done a lot of work in the community services space. Does that come from wanting to help people?
Yeah, I love helping people. And even when I wasn't a support coordinator, someone at my church needed that. And so I just gave some input and direction as to how to find services and find a plan manager and just helped her on her way.
Amazing. So using all of that skill set to help just the people in your local community as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't help myself from helping others.
Yeah,
And
I think it's something that just comes through in here that you can't really fight. And every now and then I talk about getting a job, serving coffees through the window at Macca's, but I know within a few months' time I'll be running some sort of like program in there. It's like I will not be able to help myself. I just absolutely will not be able to help myself.
Yeah.
It's just something that happens. So a lot of our listeners and people that I've been speaking to about this podcast are feeling a little stuck and unsure about where to turn and how to find their way when it comes to work. What would some of your advice be around finding your place and staying positive through the process?
I guess it's about finding your passion
Yes,
and then finding people in the employment sector that align with your passion and
passion is so
become
important.
and somehow becoming friends with the CEO or the employment manager or someone in the organization that you can become friends with to get to know more about the organization, but also so they can get to know more about you.
That's the networking part, right? Networking is so important. And I think about that place of business that we worked at, and a lot of the people that I know that are still in my social connection come from that network of
Yeah,
those people that I've been
yeah,
connected to in some way and stayed in contact with and maintained relationships with over the years. That when something happens, we can all keep coming back together and say, I've got a question, or I need your help, or like that network goes on and on and
yes.
on and grows.
And that network was just so fruitful. Like
Mm.
it's helped me a lot in my
Mm.
life as well. That
And I think that's what a
sense
lot of
of
people are
life.
missing, that when they don't have a job or when they haven't been allowed in the
Yes.
rooms, they miss
So,
those people.
yeah. So looking for volunteer work is also helpful. And just to keep asking questions of family and friends and letting them know that you're looking for work and this is what you're looking for. And also looking on LinkedIn and shooting messages to corporate people or people high up in that area and striking up a friendship.
Yeah. A genuine friendship from a genuine place of interest.
And it takes time. It's not something that you can just send an email and then say, I want to work with you. Sometimes it's about getting to know each other and sharing the interest that you have and exploring that a bit further in email or text or message and
Yeah.
then seeing where that takes you.
Amazing advice. Yeah, that's
Mm.
absolutely incredible advice. And it is, it's all built from that network. So
It's also done from the safety of your own home if you do it via text.
that's right. It
And
gives you
then,
that little bit more confidence, a little
yes,
bit of distance in it.
and then maybe meeting up for coffee.
Yeah.
Yep. And then
Though I
taking
reckon
it
the
from
world
there.
has been changed many times over a cup of coffee. That's usually when the best ideas and the best exchanges happen.
Yes.
So looking ahead, what are the hopes that you have for the readers to take away from In Pursuit of Normal?
I wanted to see that life is possible, anything.
Mm.
So because you will get knocked back and you will feel like you failed. But they say that failing is one step closer to success.
A failure is really inevitable at some
Yes,
point. I think we kind
yes,
of need to embrace and expect it's going to happen,
yes,
but it's the
yes,
resilience of what comes next.
yes. Sharing with your community and your family and whatever people you have around you to support you as well.
Mm, mm.
Because,
I was listening to a podcast the other day that were talking about failing out loud. I don't think we
yes,
talk about our failures very often. We kind of keep them a secret. We don't really
yes,
share that. And so everyone has this assumption that everyone's successful all the time, but that's really only the parts that they're allowing people to see.
yeah. And also, I grew up thinking that failure was a bad thing. And it's only recently now that I've seen a lot in the media where successful people fail and fail. And then a exercise physiologist said to me, it's not about the amount of times that you fall over. It's what's important is that you get up one more time.
Just one more time. That's right.
Yeah,
Every time it's just that one more time until you
yeah,
reach the success. Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's really important. Really important to know. Yeah. So what's next for you? What's next for you as a writer? What are we expecting to see from future Martha?
So currently I'm promoting my book. And so I'm happy to be on podcasts. I'm happy to do public speaking, either virtually or in person. I just want to get my book into the hands of the right people. Those people that need to be inspired and encouraged. Those people that needed to see that a disability is not something that you can't talk about. You know, I believe that people should ask the questions. There's a right way and a wrong way to ask a question, but keep asking questions. You can't assume that you know everything about every disability out there, because I don't and you don't, Sarah.
Oh my goodness, no, it's really, I've been doing this
Yeah.
work for 20 years and I still have to go hit Google every now and then. This is new to me. Just because I've met one person that has that disability does not mean that the next person I meet is going to have the same experience.
That's right. And so just to communicate with people. Google's good, but I think that one-on-one conversation is the way to go.
That's where you learn the most.
Yeah, so after I promote my book, I will have a rest for a while.
They're very well earned rest.
And then I'll see where life takes me next.
I cannot wait to find out where that is.
Yeah.
So tell us, where can we find you? Where can we find your book? Where can people connect with you? What are the best places to find you online?
My website is marthasiede.com. My book can be bought through Amazon or through my website. I will be at the Nepean Disability Expo.
Oh, great. I'll be there too.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you.
And I'll be selling my book there.
Excellent. Well, I encourage everybody to jump on and have a look at the website, purchase the book. I haven't finished it yet, but I have read a few chapters and it's just, it chokes me up because I remember it happening in real life. But there's so much about you that I'm learning that I never knew before. So I really appreciate your time today. I really appreciate you sharing your varied experiences with employment, and congratulations on your publishing of your first book.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Martha. I really appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you, Sarah, for
Thank
having
you.
me on your podcast.
Anytime.
Bye.